And this is going to be quite big action, and you'll see in a second why. So now I'll open up the sidebar, and we're looking for cart reducer. And once we have cart reducer, of course, I would want to handle add to cart action. And we'll say if action and then that type is equal to add to cart, well, then of course we would want to do something. And now, of course, I can remove a return state. I'll throw the error if the action is not matching. And of course, I'll start by getting all my values from the payload. So I'll say const ID, color, and then amount, and then the actual product. And all of that is coming from action and payload. And I would want to start my functionality by checking whether the item is already in the cart. And of course, we know that at the moment, the cart is empty array, correct? But we still need to set it up because there's going to be a if and else statement. So let's go with const, and I'll call this temp item. And then I'll go with state, cart, and find. And what's interesting, when I'm going to be setting up the ID in a cart, I will combine my color with my ID. So of course, I already have the ID as far as the product ID. But then since in a cart, I have the same product, but maybe with a different color, I will combine them. That's why when we're looking for the item, we'll right away combine those values as well. So I'll use find method. And then of course, I'm looking for the items. So I'm just going to go with parameter of I, and I'll say if item ID matches to that of ID plus color that is coming from my payload. If it matches, that means that the item is already in the cart. If it's not, then of course we're adding a brand new item. And I'll set up my if else. If the item exists, that means that it is already in the cart. And of course, eventually we'll set up this functionality. But for now, I would just want to go with else because I know that I have empty array. So we might as well handle that first. And we're going to start by creating a new item and then just adding it to the cart. So say here const and then new item. That will be a object. And then as far as the return from this one, I'm going to go with a return dot state. Then in the state, I would want to override the cart. And as far as the cart, I'm just going to say dot. And then we're looking for the state cart values. So I would want to copy all the values from my previous cart, which at the moment, of course, is just an empty array. And then I would want to add that new item, that new object that we're constructing over here. And as far as the ID, remember, I just said that we'll construct our ID by combining ID plus color because I can have the same item, so the same product, but with different color. That's why ID property will be equal to ID plus color. And of course, I'm talking about these values over here, the ones that are coming from the action payload. Then what other properties I would want? I'm going to go with name. And now I'm going to access that product one. Remember the one that we passed down from the add to cart. So say here product name. And then of course, I would want to set up my color. Now color is again coming from the action payload. That is that main color that we're setting up. Then of course, I also would want to have the amount. Then image. Now image is going to be in the product. So we're going to go with product images. Remember images was an array. And I'm looking for the first item. That's why I go with 0 and then dot URL. And then when it comes to the price, I'm going to set up the product price. And I also want to have a property of max, which is going to be equal to my stock. So again, we are doing this because I don't want the user to pick more items than I have actually in a stock. You'll notice that, for example, for this one, stock is 11, but for this one, it is 5. So we still need to keep track of that. That's why there's going to be 2 more properties, price and product and then price. As far as the max, I'm going to go with max and then product and of course the stock. So I will save this one right now And I think we're going to work on this guy, the temp item, if it is true in the next video. For now, I would just want to see whether our initial functionality works. So I would like to open, of course, my components. In this case, I'm looking for cart provider. And at the moment, I can see that cart is an empty array. But if we navigate to single product, of course, I picked the one that doesn't have the stock items. So let's try this one. And now, of course, I have add to cart. I can set up right now my color as well as the amount and then add to cart. And there it is. Now my value changed. Now we also navigated to the cart page, but at the moment, of course, we're not handling that. So what's really cool that we have the cart, and now, of course, I have my item. So the amount of items is 3. Color is whatever was the name color, of course. And then check it out. The ID is the product ID plus whatever color I picked. So if I'm going to go back to the products and I'll try to remember the same color, I'm not going to be able to add it. Notice how we have no matching add to cart. So why is this happening? Well, because we have temp item and we're not handling that return. So notice here, of course, I am handling what I'm returning from my action, but in here, we're not doing that. And this is going to be something that we're going to deal in the next video.